a grim start in year 2 as viewership craters. Damn. Unrivaled, the nascent 3-on-3 women's basketball league is off to a shaky start in its second year. The league, which has a slated goal of providing elite women's basketball players an alternative to playing overseas during the WNBA's offseason, has failed to attract substantial television audiences in the early portions of its second season. I had to chuckle. Elite women's basketball players. We're really overselling this thing.
The numbers you just heard are not exaggerated, misread, or taken out of context. Unrivaled's second season opened with approximately 75,000 viewers across TNT and True TV combined. By the following weekend, that number dropped to around 71,000 viewers on True TV alone. To put that into perspective, a single sold-out college basketball game regularly attracts more people inside the arena than Unrivaled can reach through national television. Those figures matter because they come at the exact moment when Unrivaled should be building momentum, not losing it. Second seasons are supposed to benefit from curiosity, word of mouth, and increased awareness. Instead, viewership has stagnated at best and declined at worst. That reality becomes even more concerning when you consider Warner Bros. Discovery's involvement. According to reports, Warner Bros. Discovery is now closely examining the exit clause in its 6-year media agreement with Unrivaled. That clause allows the company to walk away after the third year if the league fails to gain sufficient traction. This is not a routine evaluation. Media companies do not casually revisit contracts unless performance is failing to meet expectations. The question now is no longer whether Unrivaled is struggling, but whether it is approaching a breaking point. Warner Bros. Discovery is not a philanthropic organization investing in sports for goodwill. It is a publicly traded media conglomerate under significant financial pressure, actively assessing its portfolio during a period of corporate instability. Every asset must justify its existence. A niche basketball league that cannot reach 100,000 viewers nationally becomes a liability, not an opportunity. That raises a difficult but unavoidable question. Is Unrivaled on track to become one of the most expensive failed experiments in women's basketball history? The infrastructure, marketing, production value, and national television access suggest ambition. But ambition without audience demand does not translate into sustainability. If the league cannot reverse its trajectory quickly, the conversation shifts from growth to survival. And once that shift happens, the window for recovery narrows rapidly.
That can't be good. That can't be good. The numbers show a steep drop-off compared to last season when Unrivaled averaged 221,000 viewers on TNT. Let's go to the part we all want to know. Quote, "We're building Unrivaled for the long game, and we're confident in our outlook, keeping in mind the same core principles and goals we set forth when establishing the league," Unrivaled CEO Alex Bezel told Front Office Sports. "We're proud of the product we're putting on the court each week and are going to continue growing our audience while showcasing the best women's basketball players in the world. Leagues aren't built overnight." The
comparison to TGL only amplifies Unrivaled's problems. TGL, the technology-driven golf league backed by Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy, is also in its second season and was designed as a made-for-television sports experiment. Both leagues aim to modernize their sport, attract casual viewers, and create a new entertainment product rather than replicate traditional competition. The difference is that TGL is succeeding where Unrivaled is not. Despite competing with major football broadcasts, TGL regularly pulls between 300,000 and 400,000 viewers. That is 3 to 4 times Unrivaled's best numbers. Even when accounting for sport popularity differences, the gap is impossible to ignore. On top of that, Unrivaled's on-court product is not helping its case. One recent game saw teams combine to shoot 1 for 26 from three-point range. Social media has been flooded with clips of players slipping on the court, committing unforced turnovers, and missing routine layups. These moments are not being shared as highlights. They are circulating as bloopers. When a league's most viral content consists of lowlights, it signals a serious problem. The original promise of Unrivaled was elite women's basketball as a domestic alternative to overseas play. What viewers are seeing, however, does not consistently resemble elite competition. Instead, it often feels closer to high-level pickup games dressed up with professional production. That disconnect erodes trust with the audience. Fans tune in expecting excellence. When the product fails to meet that expectation, they leave, and they rarely return.
Also, another made-for-TV sports league entering its second year, TGL, has faced similar declines so far this season, albeit for the same football-related reasons. Unrivaled may be seeing a drop-off. TGL, however, seems to be in a much healthier spot overall, regularly drawing 3 to 4 times Unrivaled's biggest audiences so far this season. There's also a baseline level of uncertainty Unrivaled faces at the current moment. The league is partly owned by TNT, whose parent company Warner Bros. Discovery is in the midst of a messy sell process as Netflix and Paramount vie for the right to buy the company. I'll be honest.
Ownership uncertainty only deepens Unrivaled's instability. Warner Bros. Discovery is actively exploring sale options, and that reality changes how every subsidiary asset is evaluated. The future of Unrivaled may depend less on performance improvements and more on who ends up owning the company. If Netflix acquires Warner Bros. Discovery, Unrivaled might survive. Netflix favors content aligned with progressive branding and niche audience engagement. Unrivaled's activist messaging and social positioning fit neatly into that strategy. Netflix could easily place the league behind a paywall and treat it as targeted subscriber content rather than a mass-market success. Paramount presents a very different outcome. Paramount is facing its own financial challenges and prioritizing efficiency and profitability. A money-losing basketball league with declining viewership would likely be cut immediately. In that scenario, Unrivaled's 6-year deal, and specifically its 3-year opt-out clause, becomes critically important. That opt-out window arrives next season. If viewership does not improve dramatically, Unrivaled could be discontinued entirely, regardless of player interest or internal optimism. This is not speculation, it is standard media economics.
Paramount will probably get Unrivaled the bleep out of here. I gotta be honest. Paramount would most likely get Unrivaled the bleep out of here. Netflix, on the other hand, they'd probably like a message like Unrivaled to be on their platform. I'm just being honest.
What makes Unrivaled's current viewership numbers especially damaging is not just how low they are, but how sharply they have fallen compared to last season. During its inaugural year, the league averaged roughly 121,000 viewers on TNT. While those numbers were not impressive, they were understandable for a startup league still establishing its identity and audience. There was at least a baseline to build from. This season tells a very different story. On January 9th, Unrivaled drew approximately 39,000 viewers. The following weekend, the number rose to around 71,000. Even at its higher point, that represents a staggering decline of roughly 68% from last season's weekend average. And this is year 2, the phase when leagues are expected to grow, not hemorrhage attention. The league's CEO, Alex Bazell, responded to these concerns in a statement to Front Office Sports, offering the familiar corporate reassurance about focusing on long-term growth and taking pride in the product. On paper, that sounds reasonable. In practice, it rings hollow when the audience is shrinking in real time. Growth narratives only work when there is at least some evidence of forward movement. Right now, the data points in the opposite direction. The broader business context makes this even more alarming. Warner Bros. Discovery is currently navigating a complicated sale process, with companies like Netflix and Paramount reportedly circling. In situations like this, potential buyers scrutinize every asset on the balance sheet. Anything that appears unprofitable, stagnant, or risky becomes a candidate for elimination. A 3-on-3 basketball league that cannot consistently attract 6-figure viewership does not look like a growth asset to prospective buyers. It looks like dead weight. In a media environment where live sports are valued primarily for scale and advertising leverage, Unrivaled's numbers simply do not justify continued investment. This is no longer about patience or belief in a vision. It is about math. And the math is becoming increasingly difficult to defend.
Project B and the WNBA. Project B Tokyo could conflict with proposed WNBA start date. Project B Tokyo. Let me just say this right now. I wouldn't bet anything that Project B Tokyo is gonna happen. I'm not overly confident that Project B is a real thing yet.
That brings a discussion to Project B, the so-called rival league that recently announced tournament dates in Tokyo from late March through early April. On the surface, this appears ambitious. In reality, it raises more questions than it answers. Project B still feels more like a concept than a functioning league. There is no confirmed television partner, no finalized roster, no publicly detailed compensation structure, and no clear season format. After announcing a handful of players, the project went silent for weeks before abruptly releasing Tokyo dates. Launching a global 5-on-5 women's basketball league with a 2-week tournament in Tokyo, one that directly conflicts with proposed WNBA scheduling changes, does not resemble a coherent business strategy. It looks either rushed or deliberately disruptive. At best, Project B appears underdeveloped. At worst, it functions as a negotiating tactic designed to pressure the WNBA during labor discussions. Either way, it does not currently represent a stable or credible alternative for players seeking long-term security. And that uncertainty mirrors the broader problem facing alternative leagues right now. Vision without execution does not create leverage. It creates noise